Hi, my name is Jessie Haas. I am the founder of Delegated Task and the host of the Delegated Task Podcast. I believe that everybody has their own unique set of talents, skills, and experiences that make them unique, and I hope to take that and turn it into podcast form and highlight the experiences that business owners in the community have. Today we have Jodee Bock. She is a catalyst for conscious leadership, an author, speaker, mastermind facilitator, entrepreneur, host of her podcast Circle Up and Get Real, and also the co-host of the Emergent Culture Labs podcast. Jodee, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Jessie. I'm happy to be your first guest.
I know, this is really exciting. I've always wanted to start a podcast, and I'm glad that we could be in person. This is something that I really wanted to highlight in my podcast, in-person connection. People seem to lack that, especially when it comes to podcasts. So yeah. Thank you for being here. Whoever's listening to this podcast right now, what is the one thing that they should take away from this?
Well, I'm not sure because I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
What I want to do is help myself and you and us and everyone have emergent conversations, which we may get to the end and go, ooh, that was the thing right there. Because for me, it's about the connection and the communication and what can be established because both of us are here in person. So while my platform is culture and leadership and communication, I never really know what the outcome will be. It will be unique to whoever I'm in front of or with. I don't know. We'll see.
So the big question that I have for today is, why is culture so important for organizations, whether they're larger to mid-sized organizations, but also I want to look at the startups and the people who are in smaller businesses and why they should be focused on culture, because that's something that can get neglected.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think people think about culture. I don't think so. It's just something that is. It's just a feeling. And I don't know that too many people are thinking about that when they're starting their business. Because in my experience, in fact, I'll tell you, when I worked at an organization, I left the organization, and one of the first things I was told when I left was never, ever, ever talk about the word culture, which was interesting advice because at least to that organization, it felt touchy-feely. It felt like something you couldn't really put your hands on. So don't talk about this touchy-feely stuff and find something concrete that you can talk about. That never left me because I thought I have to talk about how things feel. How does it feel? How do I feel when I'm in a space? How do I feel when I'm having a conversation with someone? How do I feel when I walk in the door? I remember being at an organization in my long career. I was driving to work and a tear came down my cheek on my way to work. And I thought, what is that? That's telling me something about the culture I'm driving into. Even though I can't touch it, I feel it. And so when we think about culture in that way, as a startup, as a small business, wouldn't you want people to say, I am so glad to be a part of this?
Yeah.
They can't touch it, but they feel it. That's why culture is so important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can the small business owner prioritize that culture when they're building a foundation of their company?
Well, I think any small business starts somewhere, right? It starts around a kitchen table. It starts out for a drink. 2 people, 3 people have an idea. And they think, we should make a business out of this. We should do something with this. In that initial spark of, oh my gosh, yes, let's do this. You can imagine that feeling, right? It's like, oh, we have this great idea. It needs to be born through us. That's a feeling. When you're starting that way, don't you want everybody who comes into your organization as your banker, as your accountant, as an employee someday to feel that energy, that spark? That's culture. When you're starting up, if you're not tending that little spark, it might die out. Because then you get in the day-to-day of the business and the work, the doing of things. And if you forget about who you were being in that initial conversation, your culture can become, it's okay.
Yeah.
We don't, at least I shouldn't speak for everyone. I don't want that. I like that spark. I like having people be attracted to something that they want to be a part of. And to me, that's why they should think about it early and don't forget about it as you continue to grow.
How can you make sure that that's genuine as your business grows?
That's a good question, because if you're trying to make it be something as the founder, you're trying to make it be something. I read a book, and in the book it told me I have to do X, Y, and Z. You're following somebody else's roadmap instead of your own compass. So as the founder, the company's going to go the way you go. It just will. You need to keep that conversation alive as you build it, because it'll take care of itself in some way if you take care of you and who you're being in the formation of that company. So everything rises and falls on leadership. And if we're not willing or able to look in the mirror when things aren't going the way we want them to go, we blame other outside things for affecting the way people feel about the place they're working, we're not really in charge of our culture at all then.
The culture is so important because you don't want to build your business and get it to a point where you can't go back. You can't put in a genuine culture because you spent so long neglecting it and you haven't watered that plant.
Yes, that's a really, really good point. I will say, if you're a business that has not tended to its culture and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do now? It's never too late. It is easier to start.
Really?
It's easier to start that way, right? I would think it would be easier, but I'm looking around at the plants we see here. Some that maybe aren't tended as well as others, they're never, until they're dead, they're still a possibility. So don't worry if your culture has gotten a little neglected. It can be rejuvenated. And that's kind of the point of the business that my business partner and I are starting. It's called Roots. Our book is called Roots because it's a living system. It's not dead, it's not done. Once you start your business, if you let your culture go on autopilot, it won't thrive. It may survive, but it won't thrive. You need to tend it. Be aware of it. And when I say it, it's so weird to think about that because how do you define culture if it's not something that you just feel when, and you know when it's there, you know when it's not. The culture's always there. A culture is agnostic. It isn't good or bad, right or wrong. It's what people feel. So sometimes people will think, culture, good. No culture, bad. There's no such thing as no culture. If people come to your business because they have to, and they punch a time clock, and they do their work, and then they go home, and they complain about it the whole time they're there, that's still a culture. It may not be the one you would want if you could pick, but it still is a culture. So when you can recognize that, we have a lot of turnover. We've had a lot of people that have been here for a couple months and then they leave. That's not their fault. That's something you can look in the mirror and go, what is it that has our people leave us so quickly? Is there something we as founders, CEO, president, is there something I'm doing that's creating that?
I would love to chat about your backstory and your rise to fame, how you even got into the position you're in right now, because it takes so much perspective to be able to go into these companies and share all these things. And where did that perspective come from? And what really drew me to you in the beginning? Me and Jodee met when I was still in school. I had to write a paper on a small business owner in town and their story, and I had Jodee suggested to me, and I was so amazed because I have such a analytical type personality, and I bet you run into that a lot where people don't want to deal with that touchy-feely that you keep referring to. So that perspective was so interesting, and you could really tell that you're passionate about the work that you do because of how much care that you put into that conversation with just a college kid that's trying to write a paper. So yeah.
I'm glad that you saw it, and I'm glad you were interested in it, because I will tell you, Jessie, and we've talked about this before, people who are early in their career, who are young, I keep trying not to call Jessie a kid, but Jessie's a kid.
Yes.
People who are young in their career don't often see that distinction. They often don't understand something that's a nuance or something that's different than what they've been taught. You did. You were interested in me. You were interested in my perspective, which is huge, Jessie. There are so few people that do that. Once you get on that treadmill or that hamster wheel, this is the way we have to do our business. Sometimes it can be hard to pull back. It can be hard to slow down because we're always chasing something external, and that becomes a culture. Our culture is one that chases. Our culture is one that doesn't slow down. Our culture is one that attracts high performers, and that's a lot of burnout possibility too, because if they don't recognize those nuances, they might not value anything that's other than the way they see it. So thank you for noticing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So where did it all start?
Like most people, I went to college, got a degree, did what you're supposed to do, get a job. And I did that for a while, and there came a point in my career where I was hired to do leadership development in a very hard skills environment of manufacturing. And it's hard to measure the results of leadership. We got funding based on the results we could show. If you're in manufacturing, you can measure time and distance and space, and you can say if we move two machines closer together, it takes less time, saves money. But with leadership, it was really hard to measure that and to see results. So my boss told me one day, Jodee, what you do is touchy-feely crap that makes me puke. Quote.
Yes.
And I had to really rethink what I was here to do, because it felt like when I got into those spaces of communication and connection with leaders, when I got into that space of not necessarily teaching and training, but really connecting, it felt good to me, and I thought it felt good to that person, yet we couldn't measure it. So I had to rethink kind of what I was here to do. And when that boss said that to me, I thought, wow, if this is what business is like, I wonder if I'm in the right industry, if I'm in the right place. And around the same time, I'd hired my first life coach.
Yeah.
Before anybody knew what that was, because I was struggling with these things. And she told me, I think you'd be a really good life coach. And I said, what? What's that? But I pursued that, and I got a life coaching certification, and I couldn't not. At some point, I couldn't not do this work. I came in and out of other businesses. I was recruited to join other organizations, but I never let my company go. It was born in 2005, and I've been 21 years now in that business of leadership, communication, accountability, culture, all those touchy-feely things that you can't really measure. But I've been fortunate to be able to build a career on that, because I think people see beyond the metrics to what's missing, and they also see it when it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so valuable that you were able to find that and run with it in your career. That's something that's so valuable. And just, you could really tell that you must have had a passion for that really early on, because you were able to turn that into your career. You weren't satisfied with where you were. And that's so valuable, because so many people get stuck in the cycle of, I don't like what I do, but what can I do?
Right. You thought you needed to get a job because that's what people do. You get a job, you do the thing, you pay your dues, you do your time. And it didn't take you very long to say, there's something else for me. There's something else I need to do. I think you always knew you wanted to start your own business.
Yes, I did. It was kind of funny, because I kept going around to like business owners like yourself, and I kept asking, what can I do to set myself up for success to eventually own a business?
Right.
But then but I kept getting this feeling of, oh, they keep pushing me in one direction, and it doesn't seem to be a career. People just kept telling me straight up, don't get another degree. Don't, you have so much potential. I kept getting pushed in that direction.
Right. And that's rare that you heard it. First of all, it's rare that they said it, and rare that you heard it. And so part of that, there's something more going on than just the doing of a job.
Yeah.
You want to build your career on helping take some of those things off people's plates.
Yeah.
So for people in my age group, when my company's 20 years old, you see the value in taking those things off my plate that would prevent me from being my best self. But you're making your business that. So it's such a cool thing, because you're owning what you know you like. And I don't think it's the, let me just say, I don't think it's the stuff you're doing that you love.
Yeah.
I think it's the relationship you're building with people who you can help them be their best self. That's how I see delegated tasks.
That is, see, you hit the nail on the head, because I keep pulling up, there's on my phone, in my notes app, I had written something down in the second semester of my business program. I was thinking, what does my future career look like? And I wrote down a career based on connection and collaboration. And I had even wrote down specifically, I don't know how this could make a lot of money. And I even wrote down, maybe it could include a podcast. So I knew that I needed to have a career that's focused on that, like that connection. So that's what I'm focusing on right now. And anything that I take on, well, I don't know if I want to say anything I take on, I can delegate, but it's the strategy. And I'm working with these businesses to create that strategy and that direction, that clarity. And that takes a lot of connection and somebody to be there to hold their hand and let them breathe.
And let them breathe. That's so good, because if we don't have that space, and I'm gonna like literally go breathe, because we're so busy following and chasing something we don't even know what it is up there, but it's what we're supposed to chase. I'm supposed to chase this thing. you're allowing that breathing space so that I can oxygenate my brain again with
Yeah.
the breath I'm able to take and go, is this really what I thought I wanted to do? Is this really how I feel I can best serve the world? Sometimes yes. Sometimes I'm betting there will be people in your life, in your future, that will say, I had never really thought about it. And you've given them that breathing room to be able to think about it. Because in my opinion, right now in the world we live in, we are such lazy thinkers. We haven't taken the time to really ponder things and think about them. And is this really what I need to be doing? And if we did that, if we took that space, if we took that time, I think we'd be more effective in our relationships. We would have more opportunity to actually hear our customers and clients instead of telling them what we think they need. We would have more of an opportunity to have people come into our own cultures that we're creating and know that they're actually being seen and heard and gotten and appreciated for who they are, not only what they do. And so when Delegated Task can do that for business owners like me, that helps me be in charge of my own culture. So it goes around. And I think that's what's so important about the work you're doing.
Could you say that a way for a culture to be genuine is when you have people that are working in the company that are just incredibly passionate about what they're doing and seeing the value and being very passionate about what they do? But I could also see how that could lack when you have an engineer that's so focused on getting that work done, creating that product, and they don't take time to look up and look around them and see what everything around them is like.
Yeah, as someone who would see, engineer, wouldn't it be great if you looked up? I mean, I'm not wired that way, but I do coach an engineer right now. One of my coaching clients is an engineer. Yeah, and he is one who will want to look around. He loves things other than being an engineer.
Okay.
At some point, though, people in roles like that, maybe a coder or a software, somebody who has their heads down, knowing they need to accomplish tasks, they are not great at having both sides of their brain working because they've gotten so good at left brain things that they've kind of forgotten that their right brain can be involved too.
Yeah.
What we can offer, what you can offer with your work and what I can offer with mine is, like we said earlier, that breathing room, that space to say, I don't need to be 100% billable every single second of my day. Because I think when we get into that space of breathing, that there's no reason to breathe. That doesn't get me any money because I'm taking time away from this project. But we will be so much more effective with what we're doing if we work in an environment that sees us as a human, not a robot who gets things done.
Absolutely.
And in that culture of, belief that there's more than only the work we're doing, you have to have a lot of faith and trust that when people feel appreciated and understood and gotten, they will want to do more work. They will want to be more productive. They will want to work together in ways that they might be working apart just because they're trying to shore up their own resources. And so there's a lot of faith that has to come in having a culture that's open, but the reward can be so amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So when you look at scaling a business and taking on new employees, you're taking on new contracts, how can you make sure that the culture that you're setting up stays maintained even through busy seasons?
That's a really good question. I think that it comes back to how you hire. It comes back to how you attract. The difference I'm talking about, words are just words, but they're really important to me, choosing the right words. Recruiting and retention are the way we look at how we can build and grow our companies, right? We need to recruit people, we need to retain them. To me, recruiting is like fishing. You recruit, you throw a line out, you pull that line back in, you have this fish on the line, and then you have to figure out how to keep it. I'd rather think of it as attracting the people who have the same passion I have for whatever product or service we're doing. If I can attract those people, knowing that I'm in charge, I'm the leader, then I am responsible. If they don't work out, I recruited wrong. I did something wrong in the way I interviewed people. I need to take responsibility for that. And then what I want to do is engage them so that they now are able to say, hey, I have an idea about something. What if we did this? And then we're getting the best of our people instead of just a small little slice that is what we say we do every day. Recruiting and retention, huge. It costs so much money to have to hire a new person if the person doesn't last. But what if we change that whole process of attracting people to our organization. That then when we acquire other businesses, when we grow and scale, when we scale, it should be a little bit simpler than when we grow. Two different things. When we scale, we're taking the same thing we're doing and just expanding it. When we grow, we might be taking in different things that aren't part of that initial thing we started. Yep. So the culture might take on somebody else's energy, some other organization's energy, and then we have to decide who wins in this. If we acquire something, we acquire a red company and we were an orange company, that's a weird color when you combine them together. Who wins, the red or the orange? There's a lot of things to think about, but it's possible. And I love that you said scale instead of grow, because it's very different.
Absolutely. And then could you talk more about keeping your employees engaged?
Yeah.
Because you look at these companies that have this like fake culture where it's like, oh, we hit a sales goal, let's have this cheap pizza party, or let's give you a trip out, like we'll go out to dinner or something, but then it feels kind of empty.
We as people in organizations, we haven't really taken the time to ponder that question very often, in my experience. We think throwing a pizza party or giving them something is the way people are all inspired and motivated. We are so unique and individual as humans that getting to know what makes our people tick is a huge part of that. Maybe you like concrete symbols. Maybe you want a gold watch, but maybe the person over here wants one-on-one time. We have to know our humans as humans in order to allow them to be in that space of bringing their best selves to work. You won't know that until you've gotten into the mess of it. I think about this sometimes as companies that hire people to do a certain job, and then what happens when you do that job for a while and you want a promotion and you want to grow and do something else. I use welding as an example. You're a really good welder, you're hired to be a welder, and then over time you become really, really good at welding, and somebody looks at you and says, you're gonna now be in charge of welders. Two different skill sets, two completely different skill sets. One has to manage people and lead people, one does welding. And if we expect people just know how to inspire and motivate their people without being given any kind of training in that way, we will have a really disappointed manager of people and we'll lose one of our best welders. So we need to talk about these things. We need to ponder these kinds of questions and say, Bob is a really good welder. Would he be a really good leader of people? Maybe if we give him some training, maybe if we have these conversations about what makes humans human in that space, then there's a distinction between motivating them to do things and inspiring them to want to do them. That's very different.
Absolutely.
Motivation is providing a motive, and it's usually based on fear of what will happen if you don't. Make this quota. If you don't, we'll be in trouble. Inspire them to want to do it, and throw a pizza party at them isn't going to cut it for very long, because everybody got a pizza party. I just want one-on-one time with you, or I just want skill development, or if we can know that about our people, and it's going to sound like a lot at front, because throwing a pizza party is a lot easier than knowing each of your people. But I tell you, the distinction is huge when you do that.
Could you give me more of an example of how you can inspire them as a leader? What example should you be giving them?
Ask them, what inspires you? Jesse, what do you love? What is it that makes your eyes light up? What is it about that? Those would be questions to say, is it hiking in the woods? Is it playing with little kids? Is it animals? If we think that's a trite question, we won't ask it. There's no place to ask those kinds of questions at work. And what if you did? And what if you knew that that person you're having a conversation with is really good at fly fishing? Yeah. They love fly fishing. And now you have a job that's going to take some precision work and you need it done quickly. You're going to go to your fly fisherman who knows how to tie flies. And you're going to say, hey, fly fisherman, could you help me with this project? Right now we're having a collaboration in something because I knew you liked that. I knew what made you tick. I knew what made you come alive. And if we can do that and know our people that way, they will fall over backwards to participate with you.
Yeah.
Because you see them, you get them, you understand them. You're not just a number, you're a human. And I really believe that's a huge distinction that's going to help.
And that sounds like it's so important when it comes to collaboration, because I keep saying, oh, collaboration, that's what energizes me. And I love it to see, especially creative agencies or marketing agencies that can get people together to collaborate. But it sounds simpler than it actually is, because in order to get effective collaboration, you need to know somebody at a deeper level and be able to work with them and balance your skills instead of just checking off a bunch of boxes?
As an organization, as a leader, as a founder, that's a huge if. If you want this. Now, if you want this is our book, Roots. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
The 4 roots of healthy, thriving organizations. The first one is always going to be embodied conviction. We have to find what you can embody in your body, your conviction for what. What is it that you love? What is it that makes you you? What is unique about you? If we can find that in our workers, our employees, our partners, whatever we want to call them, and recognize that there's a way to help them come up with that, that's the first root we need to work on. And if we're not doing that as leaders first, if we're building a company as founders to make a lot of money, and we're just going to buy a laundromat, we don't care about laundry, but we know quarters in the machine is going to get us a lot of money.
Yeah.
If we could find a conversation that allows us to, we can make money, there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
and embody the conviction it's going to take to attract the employees and the workers and the partners and the clients that feel that when they walk in, that's the first root, embodied conviction. The 4th root is expansive collaboration, which is what you were talking about before. That's the 4th root. There are 2 other ones before then. So there's embodied conviction, there's empathetic connection. We have to understand empathy. What is it that connects us? What is empathetic connection? That's the second one. The third one is emergent conversation. We're having an emergent conversation right here, because even though we had a list of questions we wanted to talk about, when you listen in a different way, it inspires me to share other things with you that I might not have shared with you any other way. And then we've now allowed this conversation to emerge. We're so used to having agendaed conversations. Check it off the list, bullet points. And then we leave having said our piece, but never really connecting necessarily. And that happens in business all the time. I don't know if you've seen it, you haven't been there much, but we people have been in boardrooms where the president says, do we all agree? And we all nod our heads because we don't feel safe to share what we really think. And then the president leaves, and then we all sit around and go, what a jerk. Oh my God, I can't believe he didn't say this. Because we don't know how to have these kinds of conversations. And only then, in our work, in our book, will we have expansive collaboration, which says, now that I trust you, now that we've built this, let's expand. Let's collaborate on something that never could have been there if we hadn't known each other as well as we do. And we're talking with just 2 people with us, but think about that as a team. Think about that with an executive team, maybe 8, 10 people. What if those 10 people really understand this, and then they let that go down to the next level of people that they supervise and direct the work of and inspire? I need to ask you, what inspires you? Not do this. You'll push back on that without even realizing it.
Absolutely. What inspired you to write this new book, Roots?
It was Chris. When Chris and I come together, I've known him for several years now. He's one of my closest friends. When we come together, we experience emergent conversations. We always have. Yeah. And as we were just talking about, like, what does the world need? What do we think the world needs? What do we think would benefit? We just kept talking. We just kept brainstorming and heartstorming and, ideating and just doing a lot of this conversation. We came up with culture. I mean, it's just something that the world doesn't necessarily know it needs because it's so touchy-feely.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And so if we're afraid to say it because, what did we talk, an engineering company will say, well, I don't have time for that. If I believe that's true, I'll never even explore the possibility. I have to believe in the humans in spite of the work they're doing, meaning the beings are doing the work. The beings are doing the work. So I'm interested in what the beings are being. That sounds so weird when I say it. And that's just where we couldn't not have that conversation, and we kept having it, and it just came out. The ECs were both really into alliteration and patterns. So we came up with the ECs, embodied conviction, empathetic connection, emergent conversation, and expansive collaboration. And it just kind of took on a life of its own after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are those strategy sessions like for writing that book? How do you collaborate effectively with Chris?
Yeah, that's a good question because we do have our moments. It's not easy. I've written many books myself. I've never written a book with someone else. So this has been an interesting journey. We haven't had timelines and we haven't had this by then. we're just both so passionate about the outcome that we want to sort of midwife into the world that we both shared our ideas. We used a lot of AI assistance on this, and I don't think I've ever really done that before, but we used AI as if AI were our assistant.
Okay.
And so we would say, here's the big idea, here's the big thing, can you help break this down into some manageable parts?
Yeah.
And then we'd take that part and then we'd wordsmith it and we'd send it back and forth through Google Docs, and we had a lot of conversations over Zoom, and we did a lot of collaborating in that way. But we went through our own process. You know, it started with embodied conviction, it went to empathetic connection, and at some point we wrote this framework, and then we went, we're following this framework.
Yeah.
This is actually what we're creating. So then we created a business. We wrote the book, and then we created a business that's going to do this and use our own formulas for other organizations to do that.
That's incredible. So it was the book that came first, and then it inspired that business.
Yes.
So that must have felt like an aha moment when you were like, let's start a business from this, because that must have took such dedication to writing that book and realizing, wait, there's something more to this than just what's written here. Yeah.
Well, dedication, yes, and discipline, yes, and all those things, but not in a have to way, in a can't not way.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can't not do this. And so there's a spiritual dimension to this, Chris and I, to our relationship too, and there's just something more. The mastermind principle from Think and Grow, do you remember when we talked about Think and Grow Rich? There's this book written by Napoleon Hill, and he says that when people come together in a spirit of harmony, the best of them comes out in a third mind, which he called the mastermind. And we both recognize that getting really good at emergent conversations allows so much more inspiration to come into our conversation. We've gotten really good at recording our conversations so we can listen to them later, because we don't necessarily bring that into the conversation. We allow it, and then we bring it out in each other. I always tell Chris I'm the best me in his listening, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
He's such a great
absolutely.
listener. He brings out the best in me in his listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's certain walls that you can put up or filters that you have to put up, especially in the business setting. You have a little bit more leniency when it comes to somebody that you know a little bit better, but there's still that filter of a business sense. So that's nice to have somebody who you can collaborate with where there isn't so much of a filter or needing to under-explain yourself.
Right. Feel safe. Feel like, oh, okay, these are the boundaries. I can't say this.
Yeah.
And I think what we've learned from each other and with each other in the process is if there is at least someone that your employees or your associates feel comfortable with, that can let some of those barriers and walls come down, even in the moment they're with me as a coach or someone else. That feeling of you're not throwing a gotcha bomb at me, you're not going to say, catch me at a mistake. No, our culture is not that way.
Yeah.
Our culture is going to be open. Make a mistake. Please make the mistake. Make it once and make it big, but don't make it over and over and over and over and over again, because then we have to say, what have we been tolerating in our culture? Because culture really is what you tolerate, what you reward, and what you repeat. And if we've been rewarding and repeating this, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about, Bruno, and then we talk about Bruno behind his back.
Yeah.
Well, that is a culture. And how does that work when people don't feel safe to share everything, even their doubts, even their fears, even their reservations? They have them. Why would we not let them share them? That's what we're going to help with.
And going back to things that you tolerate, what are some kind of do's and don'ts that business owners should keep in mind, just as a simple reference of what should you tolerate, what is good and healthy to tolerate, but what are some things you absolutely should not tolerate, even stuff that you might not think of right away? Because obviously, don't be inappropriate, don't do anything that's incredibly rude. That's an obvious, but I gotta stop saying I can't say
you don't have
Jodee.
to. You don't have to. I don't say it because
Yes.
to me, shoulding is what got me in trouble, bad trouble in my business, but I was so restricted because I had this should in my mind.
Yeah.
I should be a certain way. I should do this. I shouldn't do this. Like there were rules written somewhere that I never got.
Yeah.
And I had this, it wasn't even awareness, this belief that wasn't even true, that there's a right way and a wrong way. So if your organization wants to tolerate flip-flops and basketball shorts in the summer, then do that. Who are we to say you shouldn't do this?
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't, well, who are you attracting? Who do you want to attract? The people who like basketball shorts and flip-flops? Then do that. If you are dressing in a certain way and that's who you want to attract, then do that authentically. Don't hire somebody who comes to the interview in flip-flops and basketball shorts and then say he's a good person and now tell him to go change to the suits, because something's missing here. Be authentic. And it's a journey. It's such a journey to figure out what is my own authenticity, because we have so many layers of shoulds. For for you to be less, but less to undo than when you get to be my age. Are you clear for your vision of your organization? Are you clear what your horizon will be? Are you clear about all those things? And many aren't, because they've never thought about it. So our structure has 4 roots, and for each root we have 4 threads, which we call them threads, but there are 4 subsets of those roots that we help people figure out, have conversations about, set structures in place for, but because they want them, not because there's a book in the sky somewhere that somebody said it should be.
Absolutely, yeah. It's more, there's more nuance and more, there's more context needed to provide a concrete answer.
Yes.
And that's the business brain coming, you know?
It is, but context is what's
Yeah.
missing so often. We don't slow down to provide the context and nuance. We assume that everybody understands what we're saying when we say 5.
Yeah.
5 what?
What does 5 mean? Yeah.
But
Maybe they know what 5
maybe
means.
they
Yeah,
do.
exactly.
Somebody else must know. I don't, but I don't dare ask because
Yeah.
I'm supposed to know it.
Yeah.
I should know this. You know, we see that right now watch any social media post out there. Well, I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying, if you do,
Yeah.
watch how many people think they know the right way. There are so many people who are willing. I call them gotcha bombs because I watched Loretta Ross's TED Talk, and her TED Talk was calling in the calling out culture. So the world is in a calling out culture. I'm going to call you out so you know I was right. And we are so doubling down on that. Let me make sure you know you are wrong, because then I know I can be right. And people are watching. Where can I catch somebody? I mean, we could take it down to what's going on in Minneapolis right now. Let me just sit here so I can make sure I catch somebody, and then I throw not a literal bomb, but I throw a gotcha bomb. You were in the wrong. It's your fault. Because we don't know how to take accountability for the things. We don't know how to own what we've been tolerating. Don't be upset with what you've been tolerating. It's something to think about for all of us.
Yeah. That's something that I see all the time on social media, is just there's so much, most of the discourse is trying to disprove something that somebody said. Is when you look at how you should parent, how you should diet, how you should do all of these, it's like everybody's wrong and everybody's trying to prove their point and everybody's an expert. There needs to have this idea that there isn't the right or wrong in the culture, but it's just whatever goes back to what your values are. And this is why it's so important to have set values and brand guidelines in your business. That's a part of your marketing structure. It's your reference point of, does this align with our values? If our vision is to be the best bakery in town to provide exceptional service, what falls under that exceptional service umbrella? But if opening the store 30 minutes late just because you want to, is that in line with the exceptional service value?
Right. So good. And these are things that we have to take accountability for. And in my observation of things, I think that's what's missing, accountability. My willingness to be responsible for the things that I've been saying and doing. And we are not great at that. Accountability feels heavy. Responsibility even feels heavy. I don't want to have responsibility. I want to be responsible for your experience. I will just do me. And then I can stay in my bunker, throw things at you because you didn't do them the way I think you should have done. How is that working, everyone? It's not working, depending on your values, your vision. What do you see for the horizon of your organization? And sometimes in business, people buy a business just to sell it. There's flip businesses or what we don't buy and hold. So we're not interested in what it takes to make sure that this is a really good place to work or the culture matters, because we're just buying it to flip. So in that case, that's a different, you still have your culture, but it's not the same as building something that's going to last for a lifetime or two.
Absolutely.
The infinite game of things is what Chris and I are most interested in. How can we do what we're doing for this organization for the infinite game? We're doing it for the love of the game. We're not doing it to buy and sell. We're doing it to hold so that all these humans that are working there can be treated as humans and have a great place to make a living so they can go home and be better parents and be better community people and live the lives we were all created to live.
Absolutely. And what does that process look like throughout the journey of onboarding, through curating that culture, to when you finally got to a point of, okay, we're ready to hand this back off to you?
So our process you're asking about, or
Yes.
okay.
Well, yeah, your new process.
So, well, since it's new, right?
Yes.
We have one client that we're going to pilot this with.
Yes.
But we have a culture readiness assessment that we will present at the beginning, which has some specific questions based on our structure, because we want to know where they start.
Yeah.
We have to have a starting point. How are you? How culturally ready are you to take this on? So that will be the first step, to find out how they are. And then we'll know what we're looking at. I hate to say measure, but we are measuring. We want to show that there's been some movement toward what they do want, not away from what they don't want.
Yeah.
And so in that space, they will do that assessment first. The way I've been operating in my own business before I partnered with Chris is, if I'm the one who is in charge, I'm your representative, we will have a get to know you session with the team you want to work with. And I will set what I call fundamentals. These are the fundamentals we're going to start with and we're going to build on. And I just kind of share those through a dialogue, not through a presentation or a lecture, but through a dialogue. And then from there, we do one-on-ones with whoever is on their leadership team so that we can address them as individuals. What's important to you? What do you want? What are you doing to get it? How's it working? And what could you do differently? Those are things I help with. And when I can support each of the leaders in that, then I meet with the whole team, maybe 2 weeks later, individuals team, and then we can see where we're going and we can measure how we're doing on that.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of our process.
And what does that culture shift look like? Something that you observe from when you first start and then when you finish working with a client, like how does that culture shift from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's a lot less visual and a lot more visceral.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the visceral is the part that's hard. How do people feel?
That's what you feel in your gut.
Yes, your gut and your heart, perhaps. Do you notice people who we're working with? Do you notice when you feel defensive, when you get committed to being right? Do you notice that in your body?
Yeah.
People haven't thought about that question ever in their lives, probably. So then I have to work with them to say, where do you feel it when you feel shoulders, jaw, stomach, chest? Where do you feel it when you feel closed off? Well, if we don't notice that, we wouldn't even have any idea how that's going to be better, right?
Yeah.
So we have to start there. And then we give them techniques and things to consider when they notice. First, you have to notice. So we want to be, we call it above the line, conscious, open, curious, committed to learning, as opposed to closed, defensive, and committed to being right. So they have to notice in their gut, in their jaw, whatever. And then from week to week, I ask, how did it go this week? Did you do the breathing exercise? Did you do the blah, blah, whatever we've given them? What did you notice? What did you notice? It's not about me. It's about you. What did you notice?
Yeah. And is there a way to document those feelings as they come about? Because it's so easy to forget about feelings because it's not associated with a specific, like it isn't always associated with a specific thing, or it's subconscious. So I guess writing those things down as you see them is effective to just keep track of that. Yeah.
They have to want to. If the team does not want to be part of this and they've been told they have to, they will come in very resistant. And the results will not be as evident to them because they're doubling down on being right. So you've probably heard of Atomic Habits, that book. They talk about habit stacking, doing things that are on top of something you already do. Like every time you wash your hands, think of X.
Yeah.
Do this thing. Every time you get up and go to the water cooler, do this thing. And then we can habit stack so that they're getting into a new habit. Because like I said earlier, we get better at what we do over and over again. And I think what we've done over and over again is complain. And we're not accountable to things these days. We're looking outside at somebody to blame and point a finger at, and we've gotten really good at that.
Yeah.
And our culture reflects that. And when you hear things at the water cooler or out having a drink with somebody, you hear those things. That's the real culture. Not what's said in the space where we don't feel safe. because we'll nod our heads and agree because we don't feel safe. But outside the boardroom, that's where we'll find out what our culture really is. And we want that to be cohesive and coherent.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see, to kind of tie things up into a little bow, are there any points or things that you wanted to touch on or would hope to touch on in this podcast right now?
I appreciate the opportunity to consider some of these things that people probably don't have time to consider.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little biased today because I have my own podcast, as you mentioned, and I did an interview with someone this morning who really opened my eyes to the way he's doing his business, which is very similar to what we want to do. So I understand that the best way for organizations to grow their culture is to go inside with the leadership. So me as a leader of this department or you as a leader of that department, if we're not willing to look in the mirror and we're always looking out the window, nothing's going to change culturally.
Yeah.
We have to come to some sort of consensus about how you operate and how I operate. I have to make you feel seen, heard, appreciated, gotten in the work you're doing, and I need you to feel safe to say the same thing to me. And if we don't do that as a leadership team, I think we're putting window dressing on things that are probably not going to shift too much.
It kind of is almost like culture is like this river, and anything that's downstream, which is you have the head of the company at the start of the stream in it, anything that comes out of that leader of the company trickles down to everybody in the organization.
It does.
But that kind of also makes it easier to focus in on who needs to change first and who needs to be willing to change.
That's the key, willing to change. And so I'm not here to say everybody's wrong and bad and everybody needs to be fixed and everything needs to change. Not at all. I think there are people who are looking in the mirror, who are saying, and in fact, there are some people who are taking it too serious, too much that way. Oh, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I'll take it for everybody. That's not it either. It's to help delegate some of the tasks and some of the accountability among the people who are most trusted in the organization, who are at the top of the stream. It doesn't have to be just one person. That one person can feel confident and safe with the people on his or her team. That's where it can really be so effective and a lot more fun.
Absolutely. And what are some habits that you do in your day-to-day that make it easy for you to upkeep a culture in your own business?
I notice all the time. I never used to, but I notice my jaw a lot. I notice when my jaw gets tight, it's when I have been triggered by something where somebody said something, somebody did something that I know I want to be right about. So for me, I notice all the time. There's being right or there's being open. And sometimes I'm right, I'm accurate, and I have to let it go because it's not worth it to prove to you that you should be wearing yellow or whatever, this is, and I don't know, it's become a habit so much that I don't think about it anymore. One thing I do is I put on this pin every day. This is something I created for Christmas for my clients. And it's based on a quote that I love about being with the doers and the dreamers and the people who have their heads in the clouds and their feet on the ground. And when we do that and be around those kinds of people who really do want to leave the earth better than when they found it, this is what I remember or put on so that I remember to do that and be that every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't do a lot of 10-step blah, blah, blah. I just know that if I am being true to me, it feels better than if I'm trying to cover something up.
People get stuck in this checklist mentality. You see it all the time with routines, like have a perfect morning routine with 20 steps on there, and then your day will be perfect. It's not that simple.
And it could be. Maybe it is for a person who's wired differently than I am. I'm not. That's why it's really hard for me to say, what do you do? What are the things I do? Because I'm in touch with how I want to feel. I make my bed every single day, no matter what, because then I look back in my room and I go, I made my bed today. That's just so simple, but I can't even remember the last time I didn't make my bed. Years and years and years and years. It's just what I do. It's like brushing my teeth.
Absolutely. It was incredible. And then also, speaking of your day-to-day, how have you, let's see, I'm trying to word this right, because I wanted to speak about delegation, but how do you make sure that in your day-to-day, you're able to focus on the work that you're doing, being able to focus on what gives you passion and the drive to just get up every morning and get your work done.
I think that comes with wisdom for me. I've been doing this for so long that I know now what should be done and doesn't bring me joy. Because you were mentioning checklists, right?
Yeah.
I know I should, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But doing those things and even checking them off a list that wasn't mine to create in the first place never felt great anyway. It's like goals. Setting goals, I've been taught forever about SMART goals, and I need to, that never inspired me. It always felt like it should. So the older I've gotten, the more discerning I've become about what I actually take action on, because I want it to be tied to a way I feel. And sometimes I feel lazy, and sometimes I don't feel great about what I did if I didn't accomplish something, but very rarely. And that helps that I'm my own boss. I'm either a good boss or I'm not a good boss sometimes, but it's me. And so the older I get, like I said, the less I worry about the things that should get done and don't. Now I'm thinking about shoveling my sidewalk, for example. There are going to be people that will do that a lot more quickly, a lot better than I can do, but I can be a hero and shovel my own driveway if I want to. Or I can go, it's worth it to me to have that time back, have somebody who does that well do that. The lawn, those kinds of things. You're asking about delegation in a way, I'm going to let the people who do that better than I, because I want to be freed up. And for me, it's heart space, head space. I want to be freed up to have that flexibility and freedom and not be tied down by the shoulds.
It takes a lot of discipline and wisdom to understand I don't have to do everything. Right. This includes the things that I don't want to do. I don't have to do them. Of course, there's things that you have to pay your taxes, you have to brush your teeth every single morning, but there's certain things that are frankly unnecessary. People have, especially in the Midwest, they have this idea that I can do it all. I can wear all these hats. I can just muscle up and get it done. And that can lead to so much burnout.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, and again, your point about wisdom, I mean, sometimes you just have to go through the slog and get broken. And you have to get to the place where you have now said, I surrender. Okay, I surrender. Maybe that's how it'll have to be for people. Because unless you understand the way you kind of said Midwest, we don't value ourselves enough sometimes. Yeah. We think like, I do need to muscle up and I do need to do it all because I can't admit that I delegated something to someone else. This isn't true just for your work. This is true for teams I work with. A person who does finance who needs to delegate to the other person who, I don't know. I have a client who told me the other day that she wanted her son to learn how to do his own laundry. And she said he should have washed his own laundry. But then she said, I can't give it to him because he won't do it. I'm the only one who knows how to do the laundry the way I do it. And so she's got this dilemma. I need to have him be responsible to learn how to do it himself, but I can't give it up because I'm the one who does it right. So for her, he won't change until the pain of changing becomes less than the pain of staying the same. So at some point, people need to have their muscles taxed or need to be broken before they say, okay, fine, Jesse, okay, you can take this off my plate.
It's a realization people need to come to, and they need to be willing to delegate. I can't just knock on somebody's door and say, hey, your time is incredibly valuable, right? And they haven't given it a thought. They've never thought about that before. They're not going to be the type of people that would see the value in that. So it definitely, just like what you said, it requires somebody who is
willing. The willingness is the key to everything. You've probably heard it said you need to be ready, willing, and able when luck comes your way. Well, we can be ready. I'm ready. Here I am. I'm ready. And we can be able. I'm able to see. I'm able to notice. But the willingness is the one that people just have trouble with. Ready, willing, and able. You have to bring your own willingness, people, to see that it could be different.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate our conversation today, Jodee. You always bring so much value in everything that you do. Your perspective is so unique. It's something that the business community really values from in the Fargo area because, like I said, so many business owners are stuck in the logistics and that very result-driven, very rigid, and they need to focus on the operations. They need to focus on that stuff. So you let people breathe and you let them realize that for themselves is incredibly valuable. What is your main takeaway from this conversation? What should people take away?
well, what I take away and what they should take
Yeah.
away might be different. Thank you for your willingness to be in the conversation. You did a super job of just allowing the conversation to emerge, which is not easy. So I took that away. Even though I'm a lot older than you, we still have a lot of things that we can connect about. And that's what's true for the humans in each of us.
Yeah.
And I love that about it. As far as what others might be able to take away from it, look in your own mirror sometime and see what keeps happening to me. That might be something to think about. What keeps happening to me? What keeps happening to me? That's a victim mentality that you might not even know you're in. If we see that, oh my gosh, I'm so unlucky, things keep happening to me. Well, you're present for everything that happens to you. So what could you do differently? One thing you could do differently is call Jesse or call Jodee or say some way, I'd like to have a conversation about this. I'd like to learn more about this. I'd like to be in a safe space where I can explore things without fear of have a gotcha bomb thrown at me or retribution or being fired or whatever all these irrational fears are that have taken us over. And so just call Jesse, call Jodee.
It's so interesting to hear the importance of culture because, as a startup company, as a small business, I'm needing to make sure that I'm building up a foundation that is going to serve me later as this business grows. So culture is going to be something that I need to particularly focus on right now. And what can I do as a solopreneur to make sure that when I'm working with clients, the culture is there, and when I hire people, the culture is there, and it is preserved, but it also evolves into what I hope it is.
Noticing what it is right now without judging it, I think, is important, especially for established organizations that are finding themselves in a space. As you develop your own, I think it's going to be, how do you feel? Do you feel joy? Do you notice the distinction between feeling heavy and feeling light? That's a huge distinction. And what you can do is not get rid of the heavy necessarily, and it's only going to be light. It's noticing. What was it that had me feel heavy? What was that? Because we're going to have both. There are things that we have to do, right? And so if we can just notice, can I do more of these and less of these? Can I delegate some of those heavy things? And maybe you don't do some of the things that people would want to delegate to you. But in that way, at least they're starting to understand there are things that I don't need to be 100% in charge of all the time. The one thing, you and I and everybody listening to this, be 100% in charge of yourself. Because if you're not, and you're looking outside yourself to see who you can blame, that's going to feel really heavy after a while. Take control of the things you can control and don't give up the freedom you have in making those choices for yourself.
And I would say that one action item that somebody could do right now, just after this podcast, get a sheet of paper and just for a whole day, write down how you're feeling in each moment. Maybe set an alarm clock throughout your entire day. Set an alarm clock every hour, every 30 minutes, whatever that might be, and write down how you're feeling and what situation you're in and the context around that. Because you might be sitting at your kitchen table feeling anxious, but are you anxious about work? Are you anxious about a project that you have coming up? Just keep note of that, and maybe that could give a little bit of that reflection that you might need.
That's a great piece of advice. Do that, everybody. That was great.
Well, thank you so much, Jodee. I really enjoyed having you on today. I'm excited to get this first episode done to hopefully kick off a wonderful season of episodes ahead. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you, Jodee?
Yeah. So I'm all over social media. Get Real with Jodee is my YouTube channel. You can find all of my podcasts there. Jodee Bock on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. Jodee at jodeebock.com. Mondays at 4 o'clock. If you're interested in having more conversations like this, please come and be my guest at the Enlightened Leadership Lab, which is every Monday at 4. We have a safe space to have these kinds of conversations. We'll have themes, but we won't have agendas. The people who are there, and we have several members, but they're not always there every week. It changes depending on who's there. And we always leave with something more than we came with. So if you're looking for a safe space to have some of these conversations, come to the Enlightened Leadership Lab. All virtual. We have people from all over in there. The address is emergenculturelabs.com/leadership lab.
Okay,
That was a
awesome.
lot.
I will link it below.
Okay.
Go and click that link. Go say hi to Jodee. Go check her out on all of her social platforms. There's so much value there. Just following her on social media. You post all the time, especially on Facebook, which is
I do post
incredible.
all the time.
Yes. So much value there. So thank you so much,
You're
Jodee.
welcome. Thanks, Jessie.
Hey, it's Jessie with Delegated Task. Thank you so much for listening to the very first episode of the Delegated Task Podcast. If you found any value in this show, there is so much more value to come. This is only the first episode. I am so excited, especially for the people in Fargo. This podcast is designed for business owners, built by business owners, so that I can highlight the individual talents, skills, and experiences of people in our local community. And I'm so excited for what's ahead. Make sure you're following me so you never miss an episode. Episodes launch every single week. Have a great rest of your day, and remember to delegate.